What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, it's time we talk about Doom: The Dark Ages player count controversy. You may or may not have seen this online. I will say, this one is kind of interesting because I feel like there's multiple, layers to it. You could go the Game Pass route, but there's also the comparison, of course, to Doom Eternal. But what we're looking at here is the Steam database, of course, a go-to, and the player count, okay? Now, the game, obviously, is only a couple days old. Now, the issue is it did have the weekend. You could say, okay, when it originally came out, obviously it came out Thursday in terms of like these tracked numbers. You could say, all right, it's a high number, but it's not like the highest of all time. You can compare it to other big games that have come out this year. You can compare it to Eternal, and we'll do that, in a minute. But you can look at it and say, all right, well, it still has the weekend, to do whatever it's going to do. Then the weekend hit, and technically it went up. I think it went up by like 500, and now it's just on its way down. Now, it's a middle of the day, end of the day Monday, Monday through Friday here. I don't think it's going to be all that high. And, we have seen, I guess, Expedition 33 is a really great newer example, right? That game was picking up new people, and I think hit its peak concurrent players week 2, week 3. Like, it was actually building people that were buying the game, okay? So, Doom: The Dark Ages peaked at 31,470. It originally debuted at 30,812, okay? Now, I don't think those are terrible numbers. Those are very, very solid. Again, I mean, you look at other games that have come out this year, Split Fiction, Kingdom Come, Assassin's Creed Shadows even. I mean, there actually is a decently long list of games that beat it, okay? That's one issue. The other issue is when you go back to Doom Eternal. Now, I will take this one step further, okay, because I see a lot of people comparing it. And I think there's a worthy conversation here. But, people say, okay, well, Doom Eternal, you look at it, basically 105,000 people was the peak concurrent 5.2 years ago. Now, that's when it originally came out, right? March 20th, 2020. Now, thing you got to remember, okay? If you remember March 20th, of course, actually, number one, Doom and Animal Crossing, that was a great little collaboration that was going on there. But obviously, there was a little something that was happening to the world, literally like a week before it. So, this was the peak. People literally were stuck. In fact, this was like the week after. Everybody in the entire world was forced to stay home. You could put more on that, less on that. It's just casual conversation. You don't have to get too mad. But there was like significant things going on, in the world that forced people. Now that's I guess the first thing, right? Exterior factors that might have influenced it. Okay, but you look at the chart, and from March, right, 105, but then April, it was at 20,000. So literally within maybe like 10, 20 days, it dropped by a lot. It dropped 80,000. And from that point on, 20,000, 7, 7, 6, 5, 10, all over I guess it kind of peaked back up a year later, 15,000. But to be fair, now, and there's, obviously we got to get back to the Dark Ages in a second here. But to be fair, to, I guess, the Dark Ages, yeah, it didn't peak as high, but if it can stay around 30,000, now, that's something that we don't know yet. Like right now, 21,000, and it's going down, in a week or two. Like, we'll see. Like, does the Nintendo Switch hurt this thing? Does Rematch and FBC Firebreak hurt this thing? I really don't think, honestly, it would all that much. Does Death Stranding 2, June and the summer, the summer months, people, do people actually play less games in the summer? They go outside. It's things that we haven't really experienced yet, right, to fully know. But to be fair, if it hangs out in that 10 to 20,000 range, that's literally what it did in every month except for when it first debuted, when there was other stuff going on in the world at that time. Now, okay, that's in defense of it. Okay, well, why? Why is it in this situation? Because, okay, now you can just bring it back to right now. To be honest with you, I thought it would be far higher. Like, I'm going to just be real, right? Going into this game, I said this game had potential for Game of the Year. I just imagine, I remember how big, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, like, this is a big franchise, and those numbers are just not all that big. Now, there's some other stuff going on with the game. There's forced ray tracing, I think, on PCs, so that's another thing. The length of it, the Mick Gordon situation, like, you can kind of go down the line, right? Like, there's actually, somewhat controversy around this game, going into it. So, like, do any of those those things have, a massive impact. Like the length is tough because you think about Doom Eternal and it had multiplayer. It was fine. In fact, I just replayed. I tried to go back and play the multiplayer of Eternal. It's hard now. It's just for the elites of the elites. But I don't know how much of an edge that really gives it. If Doom the Dark Ages came out with multiplayer, how many more people? I feel like that's something that maybe keeps people around for months, not necessarily like the week after, right? Where it's like, okay, well, the game in June and July, maybe it has like a fine player base because they're playing the multiplayer. I really don't think losing the multiplayer hurt this game, like literally at all. I guess that would just be my opinion. So the length, the Mick Gordon thing, I think that actually kind of carries waves. Like that is a decently big deal, what they did to him and that situation. But I don't know. I go to the other, games of this year, and it's like, because one thing you could say, of course, and one thing I did not say, on my list just now, Game Pass. This is a tough one because I go back and forth myself, okay? To be completely honest, I go back and forth of like, what does Game Pass really cannibalize, right? I do believe at times it can. Like, I believe Game Pass can hurt sales, but I don't think it's for sure. I don't think it's 100% like every game gets cannibalized by it. It can actually work wonders. In fact, what about Expedition 33? There's a really good example right there. That game's on Game Pass. That game, I'm sure, had a lot of players on Game Pass, but it sold 2 million. And you look at the Steam numbers, and I think it more than tripled, maybe even quadrupled the number of Doom the Dark Ages. Now, it's an entirely different game, okay, to be fair. And I feel like it's my game of the year, Expedition 33. So I personally believe it's better, but I don't think you're talking about a game that's like a 10 out of 10 and a game that's a 0 out of 10. Like I think they're relatively close in terms of quality. So I don't honestly know. Like it's a tough one where it's like, why is it the number that it is? Maybe it's just more in line with what, again, like if you take that COVID month out of Doom Eternal, this is pretty in line with that. And maybe that's where the conversation ends. You can kind of pick. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Like, if you bought it or you played it, you like it, you dislike, whatever. I mean, it's up to you, to do those things. It doesn't really matter what the other, population does to an individual. But, it is interesting because it's like, is it actually in line with the past Doom games? Like, does it matter? But then you look at the other games that came out this year. I mentioned Split Fiction. Like, that's one, that one is tough because you have two people playing. Like, you have to. I think that game hit like 90,000, 80,000, something like that on Steam. And it's like, okay, well, technically, though, I mean, it is two people playing it, so you cut it in half, but that's still more than Doom. So I don't know. It's a smaller one. Like, it is on Game Pass, and maybe that's something to do with it, but it's just doing like smaller, like just factually, I think, than other, kind of the bigger titans that came out. And this is a big titan. I mean, I think going into this year, you would say, or at least I would, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I predicted that. I knew that game was going to sell like freaking hotcakes. I think anybody could see Oblivion would do quite well. Split Fiction, if you know how well It Takes Two did. I mean, you can go down the list. I think Doom was definitely up there, and we'll see. Like, maybe in the next couple days, like maybe it is being carried by Game Pass. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, maybe they say, hey, it's reached 3 million players. Reach 3 million players. So that doesn't mean it sold that. It means 3 million people played it, right? And that makes it a little bit more challenging to figure out, how it did. Maybe that actually strengthens the idea of Game Pass, if they say something like that. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.